welcome if you're new here. My name's Lane and I just wanted to start this video, which is going to be my January wrap up if you hadn't seen from the title. So I just wanted to do that because I didn't vlog probably like half the month and so didn't show all that I read. So yeah, I wanted to do a wrap up and I think I will do that normally. The one thing I don't think I'll do is TBRs because I read solely based on my mood. So usually I pick my book based on how I'm feeling at the time, so it's really hard for me to keep to a TBR. So I figured I might not put that pressure on myself to do TBR videos, but I do want to do wrap up videos because I feel they're pretty useful, especially if you're kind of showing books within vlogs. I think it's a nice way to just sum everything together in one video. Anyways, let's get into it. I read 9 books in January, 2,389 pages, and I usually try to count the pages like the end page, not total, because that includes like acknowledgements and stuff like that. Like I have 4 5-star books, all of them were fiction, none non-fiction, and one of them was a manga. Unfortunately, I don't have them here at my dad's, so I won't be able to hold them up, but they will be up here in the corner as I talk through them. I also won't be able to read that many quotes from them, which kind of sucks, but oh well. So, first book I've read and finished, because I kind of started this in December and read it through the new year, so I counted it for this year, was Open Water by Caleb Azumah Nelson, and I gave this 4 stars. It was really good. I think it was just hard for me to connect to the writing. This is about Black people in love, and sort of the racial issues that they face. And it was from the male perspective. So yeah, it was also told in second person, I think, if I remember right. And that was just hard for me to connect with. So that was the only reason it was 4 stars, but honestly the writing was absolutely phenomenal. Caleb did so well with the writing, and I would definitely read more by him. Next, I read Circe by Madeline Miller, and this I gave 4 stars, and it'll definitely be a favorite for the year. I loved this book so much. I feel like I connected with Cersei so much, and just sort of feeling like the outcast or the weirdo, not necessarily of the family, but just like in general in life. That sounds really bad, but yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with that. But it was so good, and I loved Cersei. I'm not sure like how much of this was just Madeline Miller kind of trying to retell something but somewhat made up, or if it was like really just from her story. I didn't really look into it. The way Madeline Miller wrote it was amazing, and definitely a favorite book, definitely something I would reread and mark up even more, because I did mark it up a little bit, but I feel like there was just a lot of power in her sort of being alone and realizing that that's okay, and there were people that came and went in her life and there for a reason, whatever. I don't know, Madeline Miller just did so well, and I definitely want to get to the Song of Achilles, but I have a feeling Cersei's going to be probably her best writing so far, just because I think that's her newer one. I've heard amazing things about the Song of Achilles too, and so I want to get to it, and not to say her writing won't be amazing too, it's just, it's her second novel, and usually the writing is improved. I just have a feeling I'm going to connect with Cersei a lot more than the Song of Achilles, but I am hoping to get to that this month. I've sort of started it. I think this month I might try to do a lot of like romance books, and there's a little bit of a romance in there, so I think I'll try to do that. Anyways, I got off topic there. Next, I was still feeling the mythology mood, so I read Ariadne by Jennifer Saint. I gave this 4.5 stars. I think there were just some parts I didn't totally connect with, and it wasn't like Circe, which I think some part of my brain thought it would be, and that's not to make it bad or that you should compare it to Circe, because it is a totally different story, but it was good nonetheless, and I still think it will make a favorite. this year. I think one thing that I sort of talked about was that there was a lot of talk of like motherhood and raising children and being pregnant, and I, at this time in my life, just can't connect to that. I am in no hurry to be a mom. I am still trying to get through school. I have my dog. That's good with me. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to be a mom. I'm just not at that place in my life right now. I definitely can't imagine bringing a kid into my life. Not what I want to do. So I just couldn't connect to that. But there was one important topic in Phaedra's part of the story where she kind of talks about, this might be spoilers, so if you see, I'll put this like an emoji or something to indicate that this might be spoilers, and then once it's gone, there will be nothing else spoiler about Ariadne. Okay, for Phaedra's part of the story, when she has kids, she sort of talks about how she feels she cannot connect to her son or her kids in general. I think she only has sons if I remember right, but just how she can't connect to them and doesn't feel very motherly and feels like she's failing as a mom. And I think that was a very important topic. I think it's not quite how I expected Ariadne's story to turn out either, which is why I gave it 4.5, but good nonetheless. It did talk about, you know, raising good sons and not these shitty, excuse my language, men in these stories who are just self-absorbed and care only about their story. So I thought that was important. That's about it for Ariadne and all my thoughts, why I gave it 4.5, which is still good. Like, that's a good rating, and like I said, it'll definitely become a favorite, but there were just a few things why it was a 4.5. The next book I read was Komi Can't Communicate Volume 1, and I gave this 4 stars. This is a manga, and mangas are normally going to get a high rating for me unless I really don't like it. So because they are just so easy for me and quick, and the stories are just so simple, they usually get a pretty good rating, unless, like I said, I really just don't connect or don't like it. But I thought it was so relatable. I love Komi, and I got the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th volume because you can read them so quickly. I wanted to get a few. Once I get through those, I'll probably order the next few, but I'm definitely keen to keep reading it, so I should be able to do that this month. It was honestly quite funny too. Like, there were some funny moments where I literally like laughed out loud, so that was fun too. So I definitely recommend it, and I know it's becoming an anime, so that I definitely want to watch it. Next I read The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This book, I can't believe it took me so long to read it. I'm literally in the same boat with the Song of Achilles. Why is it taking me so long? But I gave this 5 stars, and it was amazing. Like, that's all I can say. Like, please just read it, like, and you will know, because I really can't say much. The twist was good. Totally didn't see it coming. Usually I can guess the twist, and I didn't at all. I knew some parts of it. There is a female-female romance, but I thought it was so good. Evelyn Hugo as a character, like, damn. And Evelyn Hugo was a bad bitch. Like, I loved her, even though she was supposed to be sort of not a good person, is what she kept saying. We all do bad things, and so, I don't know, it was so good, and I definitely want to read Daisy Jones and the Six next, which I've heard really good things about that too, so that's what I'm hoping to get to next. Next up, I read Such a Fun Age by Kylie Reid. This I gave 3.5 stars, and the reason I gave it 3.5 is because it's so hard for me to get into contemporary fiction. 3.5 isn't bad by any means. Like, it was a really good book and I highly recommend it, and I know other people gave it more stars, which is totally fine. I totally see why. Kylie Reid's writing is amazing. The sort of themes and topics being discussed were super important and should be discussed. It was purely just because I have a hard time connecting to literary fiction because it feels too real, whereas I'm sort of reading for escape, so I want some unrealistic parts to it, if that makes sense. Maybe that's why Open Water was a little bit hard too, because it was more contemporary, but it's really good. Good topics. The ending was great. You're really rooting for Amira, which is the babysitter who gets accused of kidnapping the girl she's watching. It kind of just dives into that. That starts right off the bat. It also talks about sort of fetishizing Black women. Alex Chamberlain, who is the mom of the daughter, is literally the worst person ever. I did not like her at all. She was so annoying. I hated her chapters, and maybe that was the point. Like, kudos to you, Kylie Reid, because I did not like Alex Chamberlain, or however the hell you say her name. So yeah, it was quite interesting. I hated Amira's boyfriend. Ugh. Yeah, it was a really good book. Like, they were supposed to be unlikable, I see that. So I didn't give it 3.5 stars because of the characters. Like, they were supposed to be like that. And so it was good. And I definitely recommend reading it still. Like I said, 3.5 stars is not bad by any means. It's good, and you should read it. Next up, I read Fangs by Sarah Andersen, and this I gave 5 stars. It's a small 100-page graphic novel about a vampire and a werewolf that fall in love. And I read it in like 20 minutes, and it was just the best 20 minutes of the month, honestly. It was so cute, and like, I don't even know how to describe it. Like, please just read it. Like, I love vampire stories, so this was just like short, quick, easy. There was lots of like funny parts, and their relationship was so cute, and it was just so good. Like, that's all I can say about it. Just please read it. It was good. There were cute, like, I think puns. I think that's what they're called. I also sort of laughed out loud at this book, but I definitely recommend it. It was good. Next, and I am very sad I don't have this book with me because there were so many poems that I loved, but I read Life of the Party by Olivia Gatwood, and this I gave 4 stars. I didn't connect with all of the poems, and this is my first sort of dive into poetry. Not that I haven't like read it before because of school or something, but it's not something I used to gravitate towards, but I want to. Is that and short stories. So I didn't connect to every poem. I did mark the ones that I did connect with. I'm pretty sure I didn't bring it. And I'm sad because there were quite a few poems that were just so good. But it was definitely like feminist, looking at the, gosh, what word did she use? She was writing about the culture's romanticization of violence against women, and not just white women. Her author's note, like I said, I wish I had the frickin' book. Maybe I should get it today. I think I'm going to my mom's later. I might grab it so that I can insert it. It was so good. You can also hear it on Books with Chloe, her channel. She read it recently too, and she talks about the author's note. It was so good. Like, I could reread and reread and reread that every day. I loved it, and I would definitely read more work by her. This book was really good. The poems were just, I connected with some or understood what she was saying, and it was just like, I'm gonna cry because maybe this should be a 5-star. It was so good. I might have to grab the book from my mom's, and I will insert me later on. It'll probably be dark, talking about some of the poems and the author's notes. So editing lane, do your thing. Okay, I have Life of the Party with me, so I just wanted to talk about it real quick because I said I would. As you can see, it's a bit later, it's darker, but I just wanted to mostly talk about the author's note, which I definitely recommend reading if you do read this book. So one thing that stuck out to me was, she says, people often tell me that I spend too much time being afraid of something that is statistically less likely than a car crash. But every time I read the news, I am pummeled by stories of missing girls, murdered girls, women killed by their revenge-seeking former boyfriends, and it becomes increasingly difficult to call the murder of women rare. It is impossible to call my fear irrational. So I thought that was just spot on. I could really just keep going, honestly. She said, I want to believe that the motivation behind most true crime is to bring the light of the epidemic of women's murder worldwide to use nonfiction storytelling as a method of illuminating a clear pattern. But I don't believe that. If that were true, it wouldn't focus on crimes committed by random strangers and instead would reveal the much more common perpetrators, men who these women knew and often loved. If true crime were truly mission-oriented, it would focus on the cases that are not explicitly perverse and shocking, the ones that are familiar, fast, and happen at home. If true crime sought to confront the reality of violence against women, it would not rely so heavily on fear-mongering narratives of cisgender white girls falling victim to men of color. Instead, it would acknowledge that indigenous women experience the highest rates of homicide, often at the hands of white men. It would depict the stories of several transgender women murdered each month, or the countless black, brown, and indigenous women who have gone missing without so much as an investigation. The language of true crime is coded. It tells us our degree of mourning is contingent on the victim's story. While students and athletes are often remembered for their accolades and looks, sex workers or women who struggled with addiction are reduced to those identities as a justification for the violence committed against them, if their stories are even covered at all. The truth is, it is a privilege to have your body looked for. I just think the author's note was so well done and just really drove home the point she was trying to make with her poems as well. I think she kind of wants to explore this fear she has and hopefully maybe understand why she's so terrified or how it makes her feel. She did say, I asked earlier what stake poetry has in this conversation. The only answer I have is this: to help us feel less alone in the dark. I thought one poem that was interesting was called Murder of a Little Beauty, which is actually about the Joan Bennett Ramsey murder. I thought that one was interesting. My favorites, though, I only have 3 or 4. So one of them was When I Say That We Are All Teen Girls. That one was good. The other one that I liked was My Grandmother Asks Why I Don't Trust Men. And one paragraph from it, it says, if I am ever murdered, so this is supposed to be her talking to her grandma. She said, if I am ever murdered, like body found in a ditch, mouth stuffed with dirt, stalking around my neck, identified by my toenails, please don't go looking for a guilty woman. And there were definitely other lines from this poem that stood out to me. And then my other favorite poem was In the Future I Love the Nighttime, which I believe is the last poem, but even just the title got me, because it's like, you really wish. But yeah, all of the lines in that poem were so well done and so well thought out. I thought it was super good. I had other stuff that I marked. There's one about, I think, an ex-boyfriend who passed away. That one was pretty sad. Anyways, definitely recommend this collection of poetry. Olivia Gatwood, I definitely want to read more by her. I think she has another book of poetry, so that would be interesting to read. But it was really good. But if you pick this up, just like be warned, because it kind of talks about true crime, murder of women. So just be warned, it is a book of poetry, and I'm sure it's very deep to Olivia Gatwood, as I'm sure other people might connect very deeply to it. So just be warned about anything, but I definitely recommend picking this up if you can. And definitely read the author's note. I could underline the whole thing. I've honestly debated highlighting everything. I might actually do that after this, so anyways. Next up, and the last book that I read for this month, was King of Battle and Blood by Scarlett St. Clair. I gave this 5 stars. Fantasy romance has a chokehold on me. I love it, and it is the best escapism for me. This book was spicy, and I loved it. There were definitely some things wrong, but like I said, I think fantasy romance is just my perfect escapism. So I think that it will always be like a 4 or 5 star. The story though, about vampires and arranged marriage, enemies to lovers essentially, and it was just good. That's all I can say. If you like fantasy romance, I do recommend it. It is adult content, so keep that in mind. Not gonna lie, I was reading adult content in high school. This book was good. I loved Adrian, which was the vampire king. They called him something else, I think, but it was really good. Well, like I said, fantasy romance is just too easy for me, so I think maybe take my opinions on it with a grain of salt, because I will probably always love it. This I read in a day, King of Battle and Blood. It was like 383 pages, but I read it in one day. Stayed up till 1:30 a.m. reading it, because I did have some appointments to get to in the afternoon / evening. Had to do a tasting for wedding stuff, so yeah, I did have a break from reading it. I think there's supposed to be a second one, so I'll definitely keep an eye on that. I'd like a Vampire King for myself. Bring it on. Anyways, that is it for this wrap up for January. Read 9 books. Like last year, I read 9 or 8, something like that in January. So yeah, it might just be like a thing that happens every year. I'm okay with that. Then I tend to slow down, so we'll see what happens with the rest of the wrap-ups, but that's it. Like I said, no big TBR. I have a few things that I've kind of started. I haven't been in a big reading mood, but hopefully that'll change. So anyways, thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed. Hopefully you find some books you want to read, or let me know if you read these books and what your thoughts were. Other than that, that's it for this video, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye.